Welcome to the Forethoughts of Our Founders, the podcast for the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. I am Herman Felton, president of Wiley College and a founder of the Higher Education Leadership Foundation. And today we resume the second half of our webisode series dedicated to exploring the historically Black colleges and universities' challenge of surviving higher ed's next defining moment. Some would say that's COVID, pre, post, all in between. But we had a intentional focus around practitioners last week, and this week we decided to focus on mentorship, personal and professional development. And today, kicking off the series and joining me is President M. Christopher Brown II, president of Kentucky State University. Welcome, brother.
Good to be here, Doc. Good to be here.
How you doing today, man?
I think I'm good. I'm tired. I think it's been a long day, but I got a little more in me. I got a little press in my spirit, as the old folk used to say.
A little press.
When they're on their way to Bible study, they say, I got a press in my spirit.
You yet holding on.
Yeah, I'm yet holding on.
Okay. I follow you.
I feel like running on to see what the end goes.
And you got to see what the end gonna be. If you start the race, you need to finish it, sir.
Got to finish.
You how's the Thoroughbred family?
Oh, phenomenal. I'm actually pleased beyond measure with our student compliance. You know, there are always outliers, but by and large, we were fortunate. We were able to repopulate the campus. Many campuses were not able to. They're in Georgia, Florida, they're in different hotspots. We are in Kentucky. So we have, certainly for our population, we have high incidence. One incident is one too many.
Absolutely.
But proportionately, we are able to manage this a lot better than some other places.
Well, that's strong leadership. I would imagine that if you are anything like me, your cabinet is probably or was a little exhausted because of the scenarios that you ran ad nauseum in preparation for it. So there's
kept changing.
Yeah, well, there's no surprise that you were able to perform because, practice is preparation and preparation is about good planning and planning is about execution. So, it is. Yeah, yeah. I'm happy for you. Today, we're talking about an intentional ascendance, right? You and I both, by the way, you were one when you were appointed to your first presidency at Alcorn State University, I think, if not one of the youngest presidents at that time in the nation, both public, private, white or Black college. And I think that's attributable to your scholarship. I know that you've authored many, many books, hundreds of articles, and are really respected. I'm happy to say that you are a product first of ours at South Carolina State University, HBCU, born and bred. And ascended through the ranks at the University of Kentucky and then on the Penn State, and did some dean work and made yourself available for service out at UNLV.
Oh, yeah.
Was a chair or a dean? Actually, a dean.
Dean, first Black dean in their history.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir.
Yeah.
So it's strong work and no accident that you find yourself where you're at today. But that intentional ascendancy, that meeting your space, your destiny at an early space, I would posit to say, having not known you before then, that it was intentional. How you got where you got was intentional. And today we're going to talk about the importance of mentorship and resolve. And I want to start with resolve first. I want to start with resolve. What does that mean in the context of intentional ascendancy?
That's a good point. One of the things that one of my mentors would say is that in life you have to have some intestinal fortitude. That means you have to have some resilience and stick to it. You have to make an internal commitment and be willing to see it through to the end. It is absolutely amazing in our current iteration of society and leadership aspirations, or those who continue to aspire to higher stages in leadership, how many of them are prone to quit or give up. They exasperate, they emote in the workplace, they threaten to quit regularly. I wish they would put it in writing
So you
instead
can
of just
accept it
talking,
and
but
keep
so
the
I
party
could
moving.
accept it. But yeah, there are those who really believe that and so resolve to your question, there are many who believe that the university and or colleges and universities should bend themselves toward their leadership styles or their personalities or their aspirations, rather than applying themselves and their skill set to the university as it is, not as you wish it would be, but just as it is. And so resolve is the mental and emotional commitment to accepting the structure and context of university operations and dynamics as they are,
In which you found and came into.
and holding on to the reins without respect to the circumstances. And those who do that out of the aspiring category are few and far in between.
It is, I'm challenged with that because I think resolve is one of the most critical attributes that one can have, arguably because these are treacherous waters, right? Or dangerous highways and byways, if you will. But I tried to figure out, how do you marry that desire with that stick-to-itiveness? How do you get individuals to understand? Is it a combination of, do you luck out when people have been somewhere and have the juxtaposition or the comparative analysis to say, well, this is bad, that was bad, this is better, this, like, how do you find and help people get to resolve? We've talked about what resolve is. How do you help people get to resolve? Because you and I know both well that a minute wasted is one that will be squandered. There is always some young person. It's like the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the WNBA. There's somebody waiting to be drafted and
Oh
to
yeah.
come get what you have. How do you help people find resolve so that they can be intentionally committed to where they are and move on in that intentional ascendancy?
You find them in two places. Let me take the third group, which is where you don't find them. There are those, as we live in an era of influencers and brand identification, who are aspiring uh, for the aggrandizement of climbing the ladder. You know, one of the reasons that many people climb uh, Mount Everest is not for self-actualization,
No.
but just to be able to say I climbed Mount Everest.
Get
So
that pen.
yeah, because I've been, so you have those. But then there are two other groups with whom I have found the greatest resonance. One are those who have failed. Mhm. Failure is a great teacher. And so for those who have never been hurt, never been bruised, never been lied on, never been misrepresented, never been terminated, never had the threat of termination, they really don't understand. But for those who have found themselves in that circumstance and pick themselves up, they tend to come to the workplace with a different level of resolve,
Yeah.
right? Because they understand like any good football coach, that on any given Monday, you could be the former football coach, right? So on any given Monday, so they come with that level. The other group are just a group through often home rearing or good mentorship and development, which is rare, uh, have come to the work with a level of humility. You know, I was fortunate that Barbara Rose Hatton, former president of Knoxville College and at that time South Carolina State, after I graduated, she came. I was a graduate student at UK, University of Kentucky, went back to interview her for my leadership class.
Okay.
And one of the things she said is that there was not a day that she did not wake up as president humble and thankful to God for the awesome responsibility that she had to lead that campus. So she did not take it lightly. And I think some people come to our campuses and other campuses and think this is a joke or a game, and fail to realize that the work we do has to do with maintaining institutions that are 100 to 200 plus years old, that there are first generation and no generation college students who are depending on us to deliver something.
A lot at stake.
Yeah, a lot is at stake. And so while you are jockeying for your next Instagram post, we are really trying to do the work that saves families and transform lives.
Jockeying for the Instagram post.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's about the gram.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you delineate the, the cadre of folks and where people fall into. And I can tell you, like, there is a magnifying difference. I don't suggest that anyone go out and find themselves in group two, but that group seems to be clearly focused on where they're going. And I think it is, I was in the Marine Corps. I heard one of my drill instructors always talk about deprivation creating starvation.
Wow.
And when you have been deprived, whether it is your fault or not, when deprivation meets you, it creates a different type of resolve and a clarity. I have had great success myself with people in that first wrong that find themselves in just a wonderful space and clear about humility, which is is not often that we find people there without having some experiences, traumatic or liminal moments in their lives. The ability to have resolve, I think we're clear about that. I want to move on to service.
Can I say one thing on that
Absolutely.
third piece?
Yes, sir.
And I know you don't want to go there, but I'm going to go there.
We'll go wherever you want to
But
go.
those people in that third group, and you might want to go ahead and confess it, are often people with a strong spiritual grounding that center them, that keep them in that humble space. And there is a spiritual dynamic to all of this work.
Oh, no question.
That we sometimes don't readily acknowledge. If it had not been
For
for the Lord on my side,
yes.
So
John
I
10
think
and
that-
10.
yeah,
I think we know what John and 10 and 10 talks about, and that is going to create disciples, going to make
that's right.
disciples.
That's right.
That's mentorship.
That's mentorship.
That's leadership. That is so much. We could break that book down and really help people to understand that the intentionality that lines up with the mission of these institutions is rooted the bedrock, the fundamental bedrock is on the word, God's word. So we could stay there for a while, but we're going to talk about service, which is right in the same space.
Right.
I've always felt like one of the greatest blessings I had was serving a baby boomer.
Hmm.
I believe that it helped me be the leader who I am and am still becoming. But I want to talk about service. Why does service matter, and what does that mean in the context of ascending intentionally? And we, I guess, from this space, we're not only presupposing that our listeners are those who want to be presidents, but those who are ascending in higher education, period. What does it mean to have a toolbox replete with different types of understanding of service and examples of service when you come to wherever it is that you want to be accepted?
Well, it almost goes back to your John 10 and 10 piece, and that is the reality is the great teaching. And even if we go back to Socrates or Plato, Aristotle, or Euripides, many of them, that teaching was done not through textbooks, which did
No,
not exist.
it was at the foot.
Not through earned degrees, which
Yes.
had not been structured in that way yet.
Nope.
It was through time
Hmm.
spent with the teacher.
At the foot of the teacher.
At the foot, right, right. So time spent. So lobbying. So even lobbying, for example, I learned lobbying as an undergraduate, as SGA president, going back and forth to the Capitol with the university president, lobbying for university status. When
Gotcha.
I went to South Carolina State, we were South Carolina State College.
Oh, wow.
It was South Carolina State College. It was not until my junior year, that we were changed from South Carolina State College to South Carolina State University. So did I ever take a class on lobbying? No. Was there a course on it? No. Did I read the book on it? No. I did it with the teacher. Then later at UNCF under the late Congressman Bill Gray. So working with Bill Gray. So I think service to whoever your teacher, coach, mentor is, provides you access, space, and proximity to do things that you otherwise would not do, to be able to do things. Even in ministry, the person who meets the pastor at the car to get the briefcase
Yes.
is the person who gets to go in the office. You see, so there's something about the person who serves on the graduation committee, the commencement committee, is the person who gets to learn how the commencement is pulled together,
Right.
how the script is done. So there is learning in service.
Yes.
Some people confuse work and service,
Okay.
which are not the same thing.
Help me with that. Help me
So
with
some people take a task and want to be paid for it. They take the task and make the task work.
Is
I
that
would
not?
do it, but I need a stipend. I would do it, right? I would do it, but I need a course release, right? So they take the task and they make the task work.
Gotcha.
The return for work is financial compensation. The return for service is teaching, access, and opportunity.
And proximity.
And proximity.
Yes, sir.
And proximity.
So this often happens when you find people and additional duties need to be rendered or taken on, and regardless of who does it, it has to be done.
Exactly.
And oftentimes, I, as a leader, relying on all other duties as assigned is not something you want to pull out your back pocket, right? You don't want people to do that. Why do you not want people to make you use and all other duties as assigned when we're talking about service?
But because then you're forcing me again
Mm-hmm.
to put the opportunity in work,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you know uh, you know the four people who you can depend on to move a task,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of what their job title is,
Doesn't matter.
what silo they're in,
Mhm.
uh, whether they got daycare needs, child care needs, grandmama to the doctor. There are people you know that you can call your girl or your guy Friday. They
Absolutely.
are going to pick up the ball for you
Mm-hmm.
and move it to the end zone. And they're not going to let you down. And if there's a problem with blocking or passing,
Or tackling.
they go call you and say, Doc, I'm trying to get this ball to the end zone for you, but I really need A or B to
Yep.
move. You have those people. But then the other people who have 20 reasons why they can't pick up the ball, unless uh, there's some kind of direct remuneration. But I say that to say it is often the case that those four people who are always on the ready to move the ball when it comes time
Mm-hmm.
for the professional development, the mentorship, the extra seat on the SACS committee,
Yep.
etc. You're going to tap that person and you're going to be promoting their ascendancy
Because of service.
because of service,
Mm-hmm.
not because of where they work, not because of where they fall in the organizational chart,
Because
but
of service.
because of their service.
I always think, Dr. Brown, of the spirit of the law and the letter of the law.
Mm-hmm,
Right? I
mm-hmm.
want folk who operate in the spirit of the law.
Exactly.
I don't want because it chills for me the spirit if I now have to say to you, yeah, this is another one of your duties,
Yeah.
rather than having someone when particularly when the work is not injurious to them, their finances, their family, et cetera, et cetera. How often do you reach back and say, I would never have thought of doing that to Dr. Hatton or Dr. Freeman, Cassie Freeman, who I know you have much regards for, or Ray Belton, who you work for.
Yeah, that's right.
I, part of my challenge is I have one person who really helped me, who taught me, my fundamental understanding of service. And that was Jimmy Jenkins. And I'm always, when I interface with my cabinet, I'm always thinking like, man, I would never say, do, think aloud that with Dr. Jenkins. Is that a gift? Is that a curse? And how often do you have to extrapolate your experiences while you're trying to mold and shape the next group who are intentionally ascending and may not have had that experience?
Yeah.
It's- it,
And and
and you were talking about service, right?
and for me, that would be Bill Gray and Hazel O'Leary.
Okay.
And their leadership was clear, onerous, if not torturous at times.
Mhm.
Um,
But it didn't kill you.
but it didn't kill me.
Mhm.
But it also taught you your ability to stretch and reach beyond
Bandwidth.
what you thought you were able to do
Yes, sir.
and get it done. And it also taught you the ability to that no was never an option. No is not an answer. The question is, let me figure it out. Let me get back to
Absolutely.
you. Right. So,
So
but
you never told them no.
oh, never. Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
promise you, Bill Gray is dead today. If he calls, the answer is still yes.
Yes. Period.
Yes, better. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
So,
then you find out how to get it done.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no, and let me say what Bill taught me, which is a part of. Now I'm going to pick up the last piece you said. He said, I'm going to clean it up, but he said basically, any day of the week, a person in leadership, which I'm now in, needs to know one competent person.
Mm,
He said, you want to be that
that
person.
person.
That when a person has a problem and they say, I don't know what to do, I don't care if they say, you know what, let me call Chris Brown. He can help me with this. You want to be that call that someone makes when they need help, when they need to get that ball moved to the end of the line.
You are the person.
You, if we can get the ball to Brown, Brown is going to score.
Yeah.
And I say that to say for those persons, when you are talking about when you're providing opportunities for service,
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to view, they don't want to avail themselves to the opportunity of service. They're seeking work and compensation. For me, it is a teachable moment,
Mm-hmm.
often a disappointing one,
Yes.
but a teachable moment. Because sometimes, and we've even had discussions of people who've been through health.
Mm-hmm.
You see the ability in a person, you see the potential in a person, and the great things that could come if they were deployed,
Mm-hmm.
if they would round their skill set, if they would get a better disposition.
Yes.
It's like, man, if this person could just do
Yeah.
these three things, right? And then you're providing them opportunities and giving them your best advice, but you can't.
There's no quid pro quo.
But they don't want to seize it.
Mm-hmm.
You are then at a point where you realize that they are not fit for the task.
Yeah.
So there are people who I wanted to develop or wanted to mentor, persons who may have come to even health, and they don't take to the sessions. It's like, that's okay. They say don't cast your pearls to the swine.
Yes.
It's like, well, I'm not going to do that again. If there's a work task, I will work with them
Yeah.
on the work task.
Yes.
But I'm not going to
Put them in the
I'm not going to try to push them up the ladder.
Yeah.
I'm not going to withhold from them what
Right.
they have earned or merited. They're not to be thrown out.
Yeah, but
okay.
proximity is a gift, President Brown. That is, at the end of the day, it is a gift, right? You have finite time, you have finite opportunities, and unfortunately, everybody does not get those same opportunities. And so it is a byproduct of memory.
Yeah.
I remember this happened. They did this, good, bad, or indifferent, and therefore they can or can't take part in this opportunity that they could have made themselves available to partake in.
Oh, absolutely.
And
the two things that will also happen. One, as I remind people, at work all the time, using union land. This is not a sheltered workshop.
Right.
All of us are where we are because someone died, quit, or moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was
And so
opening.
there was an opening, there was a spot. So somebody has to fill the spot.
Yes.
And eventually, there will be such a spot opening need that someone will call me
Mm-hmm.
and either ask me to
If.
name someone who
Yes.
might fill a spot
Yes.
or to comment on someone who has submitted themselves
For a spot.
for a spot. And they want my reflections
Mm-hmm.
on that person and how people have responded to both their work and their service, much less the resolve, will impact how I
Wow.
respond to that moment.
Do you forget anything?
Oh, I very rarely,
Yeah, yeah. And the
very
point
rarely.
I'm making, it's tied to service and resolve. Is that while you are one person, I find myself groveling with background noise. As much as I like to say, I don't care what people say, I don't care about the chatter. Um, I do make mental notes. And the
Oh yeah,
one thing that I try to get people to understand is that when you're in groups and there's dysfunction and chaos, there's always one person in there that wants the president to know that they were not a part of the chaos and that, oh, by the way, this is the author or authors of the chaos, right?
hmm,
In other words, service and resolve, there's a direct connection to service and resolve. And for me, when you talk about the humility needed to do both of those well, it's about doing the right thing at work or at service. And what is not a part of the right thing is anything that would take you away from getting the mission done. That could be a whole bunch of things. When we talk about that service component and we talk about whether it is going to get coffee for the president with good cheer, whether it is breaking down a complex budget with good
hmm,
cheer at in the ninth hour of the board meeting, whether it is dealing with a hostile parent, whatever the case may be, I find myself collecting those moments. And I don't know what type of memory God has granted me with, but I find myself collecting all of those moments for every individual on the campus to help me respond to queries about this person when they're looking for a spot or
that's right.
even considering them for a spot. Before we move on to mentorship, and we can stay here at service for a minute longer, I just really want you to close the loop on how important it is to be of good cheer when we talk about service. After all, the mission that these Greek organizations are founded on, these HBCUs are founded on, it's really about service, service to mankind before thyself, uh, actually, in this space. I just want you to drive home how important it is for people to be of good cheer when we talk about service, man.
Well, can I be brutally honest?
I would expect nothing else.
It's the only thing that matters. Uh, and let me be just as petty and messy as I'm known to be.
That was actually the topic of one of your sessions at Health,
Yeah,
right?
and health. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was
I'm
it's a
petty and
bar
I'm
burner.
yes, I am. So let me say this. I say this flatteringly. Everybody and their mama has a doctorate now. I'm sorry. Everybody. The head of Sunday school got a doctorate now. Everybody
Mhm.
has a doctorate. So um, the reality is, uh, if you look at any job description, there's the educational background. Everybody has that.
Yeah.
There's the years of experience. Everybody has that.
Have that.
Prior supervision of personnel. Even if you got to make it up and say you supervise your secretary, everybody has that.
Got that. Right.
You could have been an RA. Everybody has. So the criterion for job placement is commonplace in the industry.
Yes.
The differentiation in people is in their acumen for service and their personality that allows them to be positive in the midst of disruption. So it is actually the fit. So if you look at even a presidential search, by and large, all 80 people who apply for the job will have met the criterion.
Basically.
So what is it about you in terms of your approach to the work that makes you different?
Yeah.
And that comes from the testimony of others. That's why they do reference checks. The testimony of others to how well you served and whether or not you had a smile while you did it.
All that matters.
That matters.
Question from the chat. Where does ambition fit with service? That's a good one.
That's a tricky one. There's nothing wrong with ambition. Even the Bible says in Timothy, those that desire the office of a bishop,
yes, sir,
desire a good thing. So there's nothing wrong with desiring a good thing. But then Paul says to Timothy, but first let them be. Isn't that what he says to Timothy? So then he says, I'm glad you got ambition.
Happy for you.
I'm happy. He says, but before you get it, you should be found blameless. You shouldn't be double-tongued. You shouldn't be a liar. You should be able to rule your own house well. You should have some prior experience in management.
Criteria that you must
criteria. He said the ambition is fine, but make sure that you meet your ambition with I think you used the word at the onset of the conversation, with the proper toolkit.
Yes. Yeah.
To satisfy the job. What is disappointing to me, only because I love the field and the industry, is that as some people pursue their ambition, they do not serve and or even work long enough to have enough tools to manage the seat to which they aspire. So when I was
Doc, you're telling me because I have a PhD and I'm a vice president, you're telling me that I'm not ready or fit to be a president? Is that what
that's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. So I was dean at UNLV, Research One institution. 5,000 plus undergraduates in my college alone. Third highest paid dean on the campus. Law, science, then education. It was one of the largest colleges. You hear me? I'm at UNLV. I applied, oh gosh, that must have been 2007, 2008, to be chancellor at Southern Baton Rouge. I made it to the interviews. Southern Baton Rouge. I did not get the job. They hired Dr. Kofi Lamote. I stayed at UNLV. I eventually then went to Fisk, then to Alcorn, and then 7 years later, found myself in the chancellor's office at Southern Baton Rouge. And I asked myself, at the system office, how did I get here? And then I flashed back and realized I applied to sit in this seat 7 years before I got it.
Mm.
And as I sat in that seat, I said, oh, I am so thankful that God didn't let me get this job, because I would not have had the tools to do 7 years prior what I was able to do 7 years later. And there's nothing wrong with ambition, but as we desire, make sure you build your toolkit with experiences, not just job titles,
Yes.
not just job titles, but the experiences that make you well-rounded.
I think that's why I know for me, and I'm guessing even for you, that your interviews, any one of them that you've been on, have not been interviews, but conversations.
Oh yeah.
They've just been simple conversations because there was nothing that would be asked of you that you couldn't talk or draw on an experience from. And that, I think, is what essentially you are, helping people to understand. When you come to a space where you are ready to ascend, make sure you come with groceries. Make
Yeah.
sure you come with receipts, if you
Right.
will. Jimmy Jenkins would always tell us, because me and Stan Elliott, I don't know if you know Stan Elliott, but he and I worked together, and we were two young VPs at Livingstone with him, and we both had ambition. And Jimmy would always tell us, it is okay to have an ulterior motive as long as that ulterior motive is in line with my motive. And it took a minute for us to understand his motive was pushing Livingstone College to be the best private liberal arts college in America. That was it, period. Nothing else. It didn't have helping you get to the presidency. It didn't have helping you get more money. It was about a continuum of excellence that was his motive. And because I was under his employ, that now had to be my motive, and my agenda. And I don't think you see enough of that where people are ready to make themselves malleable to the institution and the leader, that they fall up under, and just show themselves to be, of good cheer, in trying to make their fellowship line up with the leadership.
That's right. And with Bill Gray, the rule was that those of us on his cabinet team were to be the best we could be and to do the best work possible for UNCF,
Yeah.
and you're a UNCF school.
Yeah.
And the better we did, the better our schools did.
That's right.
And his job was to remove any impediments from us doing our work.
That precluded you from being excellent.
Yeah. His job was to move out of the way anything that was stopping me from moving that ball to the end of the line. And it was very clear that there was one goal for UNCF to beat records year after year. Whatever we raised last year, we need to raise more. How much we had the lowest nonprofit administrative costs in the industry. Red Cross, and I don't want to talk about now, but back then we were at 8 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
92 cents out of every dollar raised by UNCF went to distribution.
Wow.
Right?
Those were the good old days.
8 cents on the dollar. And you know what he was striving for? Well, and it had been 20, 30, 20, got to 14, then got it to 8. He was striving for 6. He wanted to get to 5. He wanted to get a nickel. He wanted to get to the 5 so that it was 95 cents out of every dollar went to the school. So we were continually trying to beat prior performance.
What just struck me when I think about that and listening to how your cabinet, in order for you to do that, there had to be some consensus around the cabinet, right? Or was there?
Oh yeah, there was.
Yeah. Did you all have challenges building consensus? Was there a chief operating officer? Was there one person that stood out that helped build that consensus so that the cabinet could fight, scratch, claw to do whatever they needed to do to carry out that goal? Was there one person, and what did that look like? Because this ties in with service,
That
right?
was that was the president.
That
That
was
was
the president.
Corporate.
Okay.
He would beat us privately
Mm-hmm.
and praise us publicly.
Okay.
And there were days I could see Ryan McDay now. I'd get called in because I didn't have the fact book, the data book, the
Mm-hmm.
fact book that we use for our case ready, and he would wear me out. And you come out as office with your head down. All your friends be sticking their head out their office, saying, "You, I know you just got it." Right. But we all did, right?
Yeah.
You just got it.
Yeah.
And you go back, they'll come by your office later to check on you.
Yeah.
You all right? Yeah.
You're not gonna
But,
quit.
yeah, but you had to do it. And I'm talking, and if we did not have the distribution number that he had in his mind, this was the old building in Fairfax before they moved to Georgia Avenue. We would have, you think Lou Rawls' Parade of Stars, Evening Stars, Telethons? No, no, no. Everyone would be in the conference room making calls. Your vice president of HR, your director of corporate, no, we gonna have this number to send this money out for coordinated campaign. And no, he led that. And I also saw that with Hazel. So, you know, and I love this about Hazel. I try to emulate it. She worked with us. Oh, she was a taskmaster. But if we were on SACS CLC, which we were for many years,
He was a part.
working until 1:30 in the morning, we were all there working 1:30 in the morning because she was in her office and we were giving the drafts to her that she was editing and having us redo. So did we work? Yes, but we had you could not fail. This goes back to the resolve. You did not want to disappoint your leader.
Part of that, and that's what I was getting ready to say. And some, some would argue that it's a little too personal. I never wanted to let Dr. Jenkins down. It would churn my stomach if I didn't anticipate what it was that he was even thinking about before he thought about it.
Did you say that word again? Did what? That you waited to be told what to do?
Hell no.
Yeah, you had to anticipate.
Anticipate. I'm not waiting, because if I wait, I'm giving up the number one beeper, which is what you talked about a while ago. I fought tooth and nail to get that phone call. I wanted to be that person that got the phone call. And it was so joyful to get a phone call after he would give an assignment to one of the other VPs.
Exactly.
And say, Dr. Felton, I need you to make sure that this gets done. Roger that, sir. He, like Bill Gray, did the same thing. He had a blue carpet. He had blue carpet in his office, and no one wanted to go on the blue carpet. And when you came out of the blue carpet, if it was 4 o'clock, if you got a phone call at 4 to come to the office and he did not say what it was for, that was going to be a tough meeting. So I try to when I call people to the office, I try to tell them why they're coming, because the consternation, even when I'd done well, I was still afraid to go to the office at the end of the day, because I came up with some old heads, Roger McLean, Jimmy Jenkins, Bertha Taylor Scoffery, they would say, people get fired after 4 o'clock.
Oh
You,
yeah.
you don't want a meeting after 4 o'clock. So I would always, be mindful of that. And to your point, I love that about Dr. Jenkins, and it is one thing that I practice now. I don't scream, holler, curse at folk, but I always employ the tactic personally. I'm going in, but privately I'm going in. Publicly, it's a general statement to the cabinet because I know I'm catching one of you from doing what you didn't do. So let me just make this general statement that while it applies to Christopher Brown right now, it also applies to somebody else, but we just don't know it. The service piece, I don't want to leave it, but I want to get to mentorship. And I wrote my dissertation on mentorship, Chris, and I really erred because I know what you do is sponsorship. There's some mentorship, but I know sponsorship is what you do. But let's get into, first of all, how comfortable is sponsorship or mentorship, and do we need to delineate the two for folk? And I can just run that out really quick. Mentorship. I think mentorship is something that is really easy. Mentors give, sponsors invest. I mean, you can sum it up in that those 4 or 5 words, those 4 words. Mentors give, sponsors invest.
That's
But
right.
I want to talk about people wanting mentors. You say they do it for the gram. Oftentimes you'll catch somebody tagging their mentor on the gram, right? What the hell does that mean? What does it mean to be a mentor?
Well, and I think I'm glad you separate. I think there are sort of three. There can be, well, four. Uh, Throw them out and we can play with them. One are coaches. You might coach someone through something.
Hmm.
One can be an example or an exemplar. So, for example, I am a huge fan of Samuel DeWitt Proctor.
Oh my goodness.
Historically, I don't have a direct nexus to him, but he is an example for me of what a president,
Quintessential.
right, and how to balance vocation and avocation,
Hmm.
the calls to serve multiple sectors, right?
Religion,
Religion,
public service,
service, and
social
education,
justice,
right?
and education.
So he's an example, but he's not mentor.
Right.
Uh, so then there are mentors and there are sponsors. Uh, Most people, and sponsorship may be sort of masonically the 33rd degree of masonry, of mentorship.
Yes,
It's the high, it's the height of.
It's the coup de grace and the la
When you
cucaracha.
get to sponsorship, that's you
The
made
holy grail.
right.
Yeah.
So mentorship really is working with someone on what they want to work with,
Hmm.
helping them uh, uh, model the skills, helping them model the behaviors,
Hmm.
helping them get the health membership or the MLI.
Hmm.
But it is often at that level a one-way street. You know, that
It's
the
7
person who
o'clock.
is most seasoned giving to the person who is aspiring.
Hmm.
That sponsorship, as you said, it's an investment, giving versus investment. That is a mutual symbiotic
Yes, sir.
relationship
Quid pro quo.
that is very personal. Now, this is the thing. Let me just go ahead and cut straight to the white meat.
No, cut across the field.
Most people want the benefits of sponsorship,
Well, it is
but only
necessary.
want, but only want to give the engagement of mentorship.
Hmm.
Right. Because sponsorship means that I have the ability to get in the business
Yes.
and to have the uncomfortable conversation,
Conversations. Yes.
even as it is a work product.
But
And that is to say, thank you for this draft letter to this foundation, but you know this letter not right.
it's horrible.
This is horrible. This is the worst letter you've written since you've been here, right?
Listen,
And you need to be in a space where you can say that, and this is not a grievance.
no, no,
This is not
no.
my boss is horrible. It is, I know what you can produce,
Right.
and this is not it. And why are you trying to snow me with this?
Yeah, no, it is, you know, it is the mentorship is symmetric, right? It is. There's just energy going one way. The sponsorship is unique in that first, let me identify. In fact, we need sponsorship and protege, right?
That's true.
We need sponsorship and protege. I need to find out what is your skill set, who makes you what you are, why are you so valuable, right? And then figure out how I can use that. And in return, when you make me look good, I am going to make sure that I put you in places, that I invest in you, that I challenge you because I see where you're going, right? I'll never forget my first letter writing to Dr. Jenkins. And it was a briefing at the end of the day. And this is when I started out as his executive assistant. Man, I wrote a letter, Chris, got it back, and it was red
Yeah, that's
all
good.
over the place. And my heart dropped because I thought, one, dude, this dude might fire me. I can't put together 2 paragraphs, which it was, later he told me it was preferential, in his mind. This is the way I like. So the way to get you to write the way I like was for me to correct you. Right.
Is
So
to
I'm
show
gonna
you.
show you.
I'm taking the time to show you.
That didn't matter. What he said didn't matter to me because the blood on that paper was just too much for me to take. But I didn't recognize that every time, as Jared Carter says, I had some informed and heartfelt bullying, which is what I would call sponsorship. I didn't know that Dr. Jenkins saw down the road and made a conscious decision to invest in me immediately. I had to understand what his love language was.
Oh, exactly.
I had to understand what his love language was, or in other words, his leadership language was. And I think that's a void that we have with the mentor mentee piece or sponsor protege. It is my quest now to make sure that I get people to understand that we're running on this sponsor and protege model, because I need to know how brilliant you are, and I need to figure out how I utilize that to help me get to where I want to push the institution, and then figure out how I help you get to where you want to go. I'm not calling for everyone.
Exactly.
I'm not offering names for everyone. How often do you get people saying, I want you to be my mentor? You give them the access and you never hear from them.
I have a folder in my computer for them. All of those emails are in a folder in my computer. Oh, I could go through and count them, hundreds.
So I think people are really comfortable with and satisfied with mentorship. You can call me for some advice, and I'll give you some advice, and you'll go away for 6 months.
And there are people who say I'm their mentor. I'll hear it from someone else, and I'll be like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you told me."
Yeah.
Because they were not in that box in my mind.
Yes.
I don't even have their cell phone number, by the way. But
Well,
but that is how they language it.
I think in some respect, Mr. President, they're right. You've probably given them some information, right?
Maybe. Yeah, yeah.
At a time or two. And I think people have these very superficial understandings of mentorship and no understanding of sponsorship, right?
Okay.
Because we fit the definition. If you want me, you want to call me and ask me, should you apply for a job? I'm gonna give you my advice based on what I know about you and the little information that I know about the job. Actually, and some the little information that I know about you, because there's no investment
Hmm.
on both parts, that it is not a asymmetric relationship when you talk about sponsorship. That's some personal stuff.
Personal.
That
And
is
and you have to be um, of good cheer, to use your word, uh, to be a, well, first it's going back to leadership language. You have to be able to hear the language,
yes,
because many people come to the table and want you to speak their language,
which they're confused
right? Which has gotten them nothing at this
at
point.
all. Right,
But clearly, your leadership language is working,
right.
but they don't want to adopt it. But for those who do, they have to be willing to uh, be shaped and contorted. You know, I watch HGTV, and
Mhm.
apparently, getting vines to grow on the outside of your home, you know,
Yes.
especially people who have Tudor homes who want their homes covered in ivy and vines.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work, latticing and the like, weaving that must be done
Yes.
to get that vine to properly cover the house. And some people do not want to subject themselves to, and this is an interesting word. Um, yeah, I want to use this word. We don't talk about much in the field. Uh, in order to grow for real,
Hmm.
not play growth,
Hmm. Hmm.
one has to be able to be vulnerable. To be vulnerable, and that means to admit that you don't know, to admit that
Be
you need
receptive.
something, to be receptive, and to accept and implement the
Yes.
advice, not be
That's
resistant.
that's the piece that
Yep.
people don't really connect. That dot does not connect.
You
I,
have to be vulnerable.
right. I think it's really telling when you find people that you see as a leader, when you're able to emote that you have plans for them or you see in them what they may not, and they may also too, you just haven't had that conversation. But when you push people to be excellent, to have that continuum of excellence, which is what is required. You can say whatever you want to about any president. I don't care if they're at ABC, BWG. The president is a space that one ascends to, and everyone can't get there.
No, that's true.
Everyone can't get there. And so you should have respect for any president wherever they are because they're the president. But the point that I wanted to make around this willingness to accept the molding is something that takes practice, I think, because if you think about it, the people who are ascending are probably in the two percenters, right? They're excelling. And now they have to find themselves in a space and place where there's truly another person who has excelled. You are excelling, but they have excelled. And getting those people, those type A personalities, to follow, I've found to be an extreme challenge.
Yeah, it is. And those who are aspiring would do well, as you've laid it out accurately, to level set.
Mm.
And because those who are excelling and ascending often are so much better than their peer group,
Mm.
so much of their lived experience has focused on their strengths.
Yeah.
And they like to hear people talk about their
Yes.
strengths and to applaud them on their strengths, right? But if you know anything about martial arts, for example, your teacher does not care about your strengths because those you already have. The teacher, if you want to get to the next belt, focuses on your weaknesses. And so reiterates this vulnerability and the level setting that you are discussing, because that sponsorship engagement
Mm-hmm. Will be
even
replete.
yeah,
Be
it is.
replete with
I am not here to tell you all the things you did
not
well
gonna do it.
today.
Not gonna
I'm
do it.
not giving you a gold star for doing what you're supposed to do
So
and what you can do. I'm going to focus on
we're gonna
what
drive
you
in.
did not do.
Yeah, and that also goes using the karate theory when you're preparing for a match. If you know who you're going against, you're focusing on the weakness.
That's right.
Game plan, football, we're going to attack the weakness. Battle, Patton always talked about the weaknesses, and it's always the flank. Nobody's ever worried about the flank, the back, the rear, or frontal, but nobody's concerned about the flank. That's a weakness. And you are not an investor who wants to arbitrarily give away your resources.
Mm-mm.
If I am investing, I want to make sure that there's a return for both you and me, right?
Exactly.
And that doesn't feel good. I know it all too well, and I'm so grateful that I had the skin. And this all goes back to preordained destiny, which we touched on earlier. We talked about God and our relationships, but the Marine Corps prepared me to hear what the drill instructor said and not pay attention to how he said it. I don't really care how he said it. I don't care if he punched me afterwards. I remembered what he said. And so when you get mentorship or sponsorship, you have to be attuned to what is said, not how it's said. And whether you like how it is said or not, you have two decisions, and both come freely. You can leave or you can stay. And this goes back to the leadership language. Let's drill in on leadership language and have a discussion about. I don't even know what the 5 damn love languages are. I know there's touch, there's affirmation, there might be time or something like that.
Time, gifts. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, what would you say about a person who is not going to sit you down and say, this is how we get there? Rather, they're going to provide you with opportunities for you to get there. Would that be a person who is not, affirmation is not their language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but they're investing time, and the challenge is depending on uh, the age
Hmm.
of the leader or the president, uh, how we manage mentally and realistically our time may be limited, right? So I don't really have the time to say, I'm assigning you to this committee so you can learn these 3 things.
And it'll be helpful 10
And
years
this
later.
will be helpful to you in the future. And if you do this, then when I get to next year, I'm going to do this. And then you'll be in position because I know someone is retiring
Yes.
in 3 years. And then you will have done these 3 things and I'll have you ready. I don't have the time.
What
That's
can,
in my mind.
yes.
I don't have the time.
You know what I call
I'm
that?
saying, can you chair that committee for me
Mhm.
and get that done? Because I know where it's taking you. You have no clue. You
In,
have no clue.
in my mind, Chris, you're either playing three-dimensional chess or Connect Four. And if you're playing Connect Four, you won't get an opportunity to redeem yourself to play three-dimensional chess, which goes back to I don't have time to tell you why. If I Do you trust me?
That's the question.
Right? Do you trust me? And if you do, implicitly you have to because you're working under my employ. And if you don't trust a leader, you should haul ass, right? You should not be in a place where you don't trust a leader, whether you feel like it's right or wrong, indifferent, because what you do is injure yourself potentially. You can't hurt. Jimmy would always say, "Yeah, you can try to do something to mess up my gig. You can do something to try to get me fired, but if I get fired, you ain't gonna be here. I'm gonna take you.
Exactly.
I'm gonna take
Exactly.
you out with me."
Exactly.
But my point is that when I'm so glad you said that. You don't have the time to tell you what the end game is going to be.
Mm-mm.
But if you study, this goes back to the language. If you know who I am and you know what I've done, why would that not be the same to be imparted upon you? If I came to you with an opportunity or work or service, depending on who you are, why not take that because the end game may not be revealed to you, but it's clear to me.
Exactly. And there has to be a trust dynamic.
Well, that
There,
is
ha- there has to be a trust. I want to put this, I want to do an
yes, sir.
algebraic equation
Yes, sir.
and vulnerability.
Yes, sir.
You,
See, we're talking about sponsorship now.
yeah,
You're
we're
talking
talking about, this is the thing. He says, Old Testament teaching, he says, I call the young because they're strong. I
wrong.
call the old because they know the way. So
Wow.
either you have to trust that I know the way
Mm-hmm.
to get me and you where you're trying to go, or you don't.
Yeah.
What happens is those with ambition, back to your word, often come with their life plan based on what they have seen. And
Timetables,
so,
timetables and all.
right, I'll do 2 years of this, I'll do 1 year of that. And if I can do this, then I want to move here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have mapped one way to get where they want to go. But once you get to a certain seat, like where I sit, I have seen multiple ways
Oh, there's
to
so
get
many ways.
you focusing on that way, and you don't even realize that's the harder way.
And it's antiquated.
Right. But you have to then trust that the person who is leading you and sponsor you, one has your best interest and will navigate
The waters
on
for
your
you.
path.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it I find it interesting that you even have to have with officers of the college. It's one thing to have people who are, directors who are getting to where they need to be to have that in those conversations with them. But I grow tired of having conversations with officers of the college, cabinet members. I grow tired really quickly if a person around me is playing Connect Four. It is tough, and and again, this really should have been about sponsorship because I know what you have done, and I know sponsorship, and we both are mentors to some people, but we're sponsors to a great deal of folk as well. The trust piece is and respect is so critical, and the intentionality that is required to get to that space, to get to trust and respect. Some would argue that it should come with the appointment letter, right? I believe it should. I trusted Dr. Jenkins from day one, period. It didn't matter. We're in a space and place now where people who you see good in and find it prudent to have them go along the journey with you still make you earn their trust.
And not only that, many, and I don't say this in any narcissistic, with any narcissistic intent, because they may well be. They might be a Mensa member, but they also think they are smarter than you. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a disconnect because there is a veiled cloaking of, well, I'm just as smart, if not smarter than.
Yes.
It's almost as if to be legal, but for time and place,
You
I
would
would
be,
be the president, right, and not you.
but you're
And
not.
right, but you're not. But that because that is
Yeah.
operating, they don't want to avail themselves to be trustful and or vulnerable. This is my greater disappointment. I have now accepted that some people are just not smart enough to know the position that they're in. And so I don't waste my time in investing. And I don't give them any assignments outside of their work. Because they will mistake the service opportunity as if it's service to me personally and not service to their greater good.
And now you're in this wonderful basket that I call serviceable. You're serviceable. You'll fit.
Right.
You work for now.
Right. You're completing this task
This task.
that I need a body in.
You're good. You're good. You're good until you're no longer good.
Exactly.
And if you are smart enough, you read between the lines. Well, I want to stick on this.
Can I say one more thing on
Say
this?
more.
My disappointment. For those who may be listening, who have been given an opportunity to trust and or be vulnerable and or to serve, to be mentored and or sponsored, do not miss your moment. I think that's critically important. My career ascendance, to use your word, is because at different moments in time, my boss, and I use that word, or supervisor, whatever we want to call them, gave me a stretch assignment.
Watch out now.
Right? I am a witness that I have tried repeatedly. I am the failure. I have tried repeatedly to give some people stretch assignments, which means you have given them an assignment for which they on their own resume do not qualify. You have given them a title that they would not be able to get anywhere else today, and a scope of work and the tools and resources to complete it. And they don't get it done. They don't get it done. I just think that's cool. If you are ever given a stretch assignment, if you don't sleep for a month, if you don't eat for 12 days, don't fail to stretch.
Let me throw this at you.
The whole point is it's not within your reach.
Reach, right.
It's not within your, that's why it's a stretch assignment.
But
you got to do something different.
But listen to this though, Chris, and I think this is gonna touch you. When we talk about sponsor and protege, the question for the sponsor, from the sponsor to the protege is how many people do you have in your back pocket? Right? how many people do you have in your pocket? Because I'm going to ask you to do the impossible on this
Mhm.
campus. And if you have people in your pocket, you're able to do the stretch assignment, right?
That's right.
You accomplished every one of those stretch assignments not by yourself,
Mm-mm.
but because of consensus building
And relationship.
and relationships that happened by osmosis. You understanding that I'm going to need or I'm going to be good to a person. I know it's bad grammar, but it's good communication. I'm going to need this person at some point in time. I'm going to need this person over here. I'm going to need a favor from this person, that person. That's the other piece of really letting your sponsor know I have cachet. I come with a skill set already, but I also have cachet with my peers across this sector so that I can get stuff done.
That's right. But Bill Gray taught it to us as you need to have a good telephone.
That's it.
Back then,
What's in the
people had roll.
Rolodex?
He
What's in the
said you need a good
Rolodex?
telephone, and that means if there's something you need to have a number in here. It's not about who you know. He says it's who knows you.
That's right.
I know Michael Dale is the head of Dell Corporation, but if Michael Dale
Just
don't
don't
know
know.
me, that's not really
Doesn't
helpful.
matter.
But
And
you do need people in your network
right
you can partner with to complete a task
on a campus,
on a
right?
campus.
So it's great to be known out yonder. Out yonder can't get that stretch assignment on campus done.
No,
And so when you're an officer of the college and you can't stand the VP for student affairs and you sort of talk to the person in financial aid, this, that, the other, how do you imagine that stretch assignment when it comes, because it's coming,
right.
and stretch assignment could be that very test that dictates your level of ascension at said place.
That's right.
If you don't understand how to connect the dots, as Dr. Jenkins would always say, you got to be able to connect the dots, son. You got to be able to connect the dots. If you can't connect the dots that you are at a place of employment where it should not be about dislike, don't have to be a kumbaya, but we
Mm-mm.
certainly need to be able to work together
Yeah,
for the
that's right.
good of the order. And if you understand the language of the president, like I knew that I could not send an email to Dr. Jenkins after I said to him, "Sir, I sent you an email." And he said, "Well, maybe I don't know if I saw it or not." I knew at that moment it wasn't even about anything other than, okay, I need to bring him some mail. I need to say to him in a meeting what I need to say and follow up with a nice hand note. I knew him, I think, better than he knew himself. Sounds
All right.
silly and absurd, but when it came down to following his language and knowing what he liked, if he didn't walk into a building and do this, I was crushed, right? Because I had to go clear the ground before him. And what that meant for me was I was going to ask whoever was in charge of coronation, if it was coronation, I need to run a show. I
Mm-hmm.
need to run a show. I need to see everything that I need to see. I need to know where he's standing. I need to know, what he's doing. What is the first lady doing? I needed to know everything. And I didn't do it in an intrusive way because I had cachet with my colleagues. But if I didn't like them, if they didn't like me, and if I felt like I was the COO and that didn't mean anything to them, they probably would relish in making me feel inept as it related to, taking care of my boss.
And my
Leadership
job,
level.
my goal was to never let my boss be disappointed
Ever,
or surprised
ever,
or stressed.
ever.
Let me tell you, you call his. I pulled off commencement at Fisk in the middle of the Great Flood of 2010. Everything was flooded in Nashville.
Mm,
Vanderbilt, everybody, but President O'Leary had her commencement
period.
started on time too. I was driving around that morning at 8 a.m. in the rain, trying to, because we were planning to have the commencement in the grass on campus outside, trying to find out whose building was not flooded.
Right.
Called this church, called that, lots of mega churches in Nashville. Found one that had a little bit of leaking, but it was on the backside. Rented the church
That
at
morning.
that spot that morning. It was $1,000. And yes, that's the wedding cost. Told it was going to be 2 hours. They had to call, get approval. I rented it that morning. We sent out texts and emails and moved to graduation.
Everybody over there.
The sun came out. Cory Booker was the speaker, right? So I was vice president for, hear this, for research at AACTE under Sharon Robinson, who used to be Assistant Secretary of Education. Long story short, Daddy got sick, things happened, she's on leave, and in the middle of this, I want you to hear this. I'm an education person. Education, public policy. The CFO retired in the middle of the annual audit. Sharon's daddy is dying. He had cancer. So you know what she made me? I was vice president for research and interim vice president for business and finance at CFO. I don't have an accounting degree. I don't have a CPA, but can I tell you what?
Resolve.
The audit was completed on time, and she had it for her board, and I ran the search to hire a new CFO who stayed, good Lord, that must have been 2006, 2005, 2006. He just retired last year. So he served 15 years.
You did good.
Yeah, I did good. Right. But she didn't have to worry. There was never a day.
Let me tell you something.
She was home dealing with her family issue that she had to wonder, was Brown go finish the audit? Do you hear me? That was never a question.
I think about, again, learning Dr. Jenkins. And if for those of you who are watching, if you don't know anything about the CIAA, you are missing arguably the greatest homecoming spectacle wrapped up in a basketball tournament for Black colleges. And it is a coveted ticket, hotels, ticket, etc. My first year as VP for advancement, Dr. Jenkins called me. We went to the final round, got into the championship game, and needed more tickets. And he said, I need some tickets. And I didn't have any. And I felt horrible. I couldn't find any. There was just nothing I could do. The next year, I remembered that not only did he ask for tickets, I fortunately had a few hotel rooms that were left over. If I started 6 months in advance, Dr. Jenkins, I need your room list, sir. 3 months. Mr. President, I need your room list, sir. A month. Mr. President, might it be an opportunity for you and I to sit down and get this room list? The week of, Dr. Felton, I need 9 rooms. So every year I would literally fight the CFO to purchase 10 extra rooms and to get me about 30 books of tickets. And I would just wait because I knew what was coming. But implicit in that was my ability to make sure that anything that Dr. Jenkins could think of during that week, it was going to be taken care of.
That's right.
And I remember leaving when I got my first presidency at Wilberforce, and Dr. Felice saying to me, it's just not the same without you, Dr. Felton. That was the absolute best sentence anyone could have ever said to me. And that was because they never had to worry about anything. I was anticipatory to the 10th degree with them. And it all went back to understanding his language. He was a provider.
Right.
He was akin to that daddy that didn't tell you he loved you, but you had a roof over your head, you had food, and you were taken care of, right? Clothes on
And,
your back.
and see that extra is for me. My people know I'm a it's back to Timothy, that those that desire the office of bishop should be given to hospitality. Right.
Yes.
So I enjoy hosting. What I don't ever want to do, let me say this. Uh, I didn't grow up the smartest, the most popular, or the prettiest, right? And so I know what exclusion looks like.
Mm.
So I'm very sensitive to exclusion. So I always want to have enough to include someone. So, I know some presidential models are, um, oh, this is a private event. Yeah, it may be a private event, but I still want 4 extra tables so that as I'm walking to the private event,
Come on with me.
somebody says, "Where you go?" I say, "I'm going." You come on.
Yeah, come on with me.
And I want to include people,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that proximity that we're talking
Be
about.
ready
I
for it.
want to include people
Mm-hmm.
in the proximity because you never know
That's right.
who the next person is going to be. It may not be the one you thought it was going to be. So I want to make sure that I have provided an opportunity to pour in and to provide access and opportunity.
But oftentimes Wanda Gonsalves
Yeah,
asked or said, that they have to make sure that folks, leaders, actually have to make sure that folks, and this is not what she's saying, but I'm paraphrasing, that folks aren't overlooked to be on those committees,
that's right.
and that's a great point. But I would also add that the Latin term res isper liquitor, it speaks for itself. The thing speaks for itself. Your work should speak for itself. Your work should be so glowing that I notice it, or that someone else notices it, or that you find yourself in a space where people want to champion for you.
Right, right.
Right.
And you have to, and to the piece you're missing, you're mentioning about including people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can there are talents on all of our campuses
Mm-hmm.
that are underutilized, but you cannot hide your light under a bushel. Uh, there are some people who volunteer for nearly every opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and they seize it,
Mm-hmm.
and they begin to grow, build, and amass portfolios. There are others who are probably just as competent and capable,
Yes.
um, who are not in the center of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to anybody who is out there who wants to grow and ascend, as we're talking about tonight, make yourself available to serve. I'll never forget. Um, I got the call. I was at Askew, and I got the call that Southern was going to reorganize their system. And someone called and said, "We really think you'll be good for it."
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought about it. I read it. They sent me the job, and I read it. And I said, "Oh, that's a really good. I would like that. I would enjoy that. This reminds me of this, et cetera, et cetera." And I was walking through my home in Las Vegas, and I had an epiphany because I was saying to myself, "I really would like that job." Well, and I received the epiphany. He's, I don't know if it was a divine epiphany or just my higher consciousness that said, "Well, let me help you, Brown. Nobody is going to come knock on this door on Montes Vasco's and give it to you.
You gotta
If
go
you
get it.
want it,
Gotta
you
go
need
get it.
to apply."
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'm telling you, it was just that I was walking through the living room and said, "No," I was looking at the front door and I heard it said, "Nobody's going to knock on that door and give it to you.
Gotta
If
go
you
get it.
want it,
Gotta go get
you
it.
have to put yourself in position
Mm-hmm.
to get it. Off of it was Ruth. Naomi told Ruth, "You need to just go lay in the doorway.
That's it.
Just block the door. He can't walk past until he trip over you."
Actually,
And so, if you have skills,
yeah,
I'm saying this to anybody, if you have skills and you can serve your campus, you can help your campus move the mission, move enrollment, move graduation,
yeah.
move the coronation, move whatever it is, put yourself in the way of service. To some people get on the committee. I hate to talk about Alpha. I'm on this Alpha committee. There's somebody who really is not supposed to. I'm just saying this. They should not be on the committee. They were never appointed to the committee. But the brother just kept coming. He kept coming to every meeting, participating, volunteering. He even wrote the minutes up, typed this, and guess what? Now he's on the committee. I mean, he don't never miss a meeting.
Right.
He don't miss a meeting. So you got to put yourself in the way.
As Jared Carter, I was just about to ask this question. He came with those old, that little sign, that little game sign that y'all have going on. But as we cut across the field, he wants us to discuss helping leaders to understand the end, a start and finish to work and legacy. How do we get people, and not just leaders up here, but a leader, period, to understand the start and the finish, right?
That's so interesting. I have been talking about that this week, last week as well. In the HBCU industry, we need to pay more attention to organizational life cycles and leadership life cycles. There are scopes of work. I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe that a president is a manifestation of a board and a campus's scope of work at a particular point in time in history.
In the college's history.
Right, in the college's history. Sometimes that president and that board can redefine the work and use the same person on a same set of skills. Sometimes they need a different person.
Right.
Some of our institutional failures are when we needed a different person, but we tried to keep the same person. And so
such a time as this.
Yeah, the more we study that, I don't think we study it enough. Other campuses, and I'm not giving them praise, I'm just talking about practice. There are some other campuses that are much more conscious of that.
To know about that, yeah.
Right, and say, we need a fundraiser for the next 5 years. And then they want somebody, then they'll say, we need someone who's an academic.
That's right.
I was reading in the Chronicle today, this current president at George Washington, really interesting, has said, and Winston-Salem did this several years ago, said that the campus is too big. And so they have been intentional about decreasing the size of George Washington.
Was it Reeves that did that?
It was George Reeves at Winston-Salem.
At Winston-Salem.
George Reeves stocked up money at Winston-Salem and said, if I put this money to the side, I want to decrease my enrollment over the next 3 years and increase the quality of the class. And they did an excellent transformation. And so as an industry, we don't do that well. And it may be something within the Afrocentric tradition. I'd have to study it, because black pastors don't do it well either. Civil rights leaders don't do it well either.
But we're born out of necessity, though.
Yeah.
So that makes it tough from the get-go. We have
when the leader dies, many times, especially, let me change that, when an effective leader dies or transitions, many times that organization will spiral for some span of time until it can reset. So I think that's an opportunity for us to re-envision and imagine organizational life cycle.
I think that is that is a whole conversation in and of itself. because it really talks about intentionality, number one, and the capacity to not be schizophrenic or have ADD, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
we oftentimes will run and see shiny happening over at Kentucky State, and and not understand that Wiley doesn't have the capacity, even if we wanted to do that, but we're still going to do it because they're doing it.
Right.
I think that ADD is also detrimental to institutions, and which is another thing that precludes people from starting and finishing. Strategic planning too, which is boring. There's over a gazillion different models.
That's
Um,
right.
I love strategic planning work. Being a political scientist and a Marine, some of the best strategists were military guys, and so I really believe that strategic planning is the one thing. We're talking about Winston-Salem State. Look at them today,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so Reeves was strategic,
Very strategic.
very
And then when he completed his work,
deuces.
he said, I fought a good fight. I
I'm
can't
telling you.
repeat. I finished my course.
I think it is Dr. Diane Broadley Suber who said sometimes you got to know when to leave the fair. You can't stay on the ride for too long,
Mm.
And I think that is the other piece. Somebody talked about understanding the greater good over in the comments, and this all really wraps into what I would consider to be a prize protege, a person that understands resolve, but understands it in a demonstrative way. A person who who shows a sermon rather than preaches one by way of
Mhm.
service, and one who can articulate their worth, right? Because you need to be able, in a nice way, be able to say, Mr. President, you need me. I have a skill set that if used, could be beneficial both to you and me. And there lies the challenge, right? How to say that without sounding self-aggrandizing or coming off as if it really is about you.
And you have to be able, even let me say what we need to do as leaders and presidents, you have to also, we have to exhibit vulnerability to know where we need help
Yeah.
and to allow people to provide that support. Some of us falter under the weight of self-sufficiency.
Hmm.
But even in this space, we cannot do it alone.
I
You know,
think I
you
think
got
what
to have, you got
we
to have,
we do.
got to have people.
You're right, but I think what challenges the president and chancellor, particularly in this space, again, is the noise in the background. Like
And
it,
that's
it, it is
noise
really
is a killer.
it's difficult, and even when you find, I don't know how you manage disappointment by way of seeing a cabinet member attribute, excuse me, behaviors that are antithetical to a officer of the college. But I sort of shut down.
Oh yeah.
And I want people to know me well enough to know that if if we don't talk at least every other day and you're officer of the college, you should know that something's not right. And this goes back to really understanding. And I think this is why we have challenges, or at least for me, why I have challenges in asking for help, because when trust is void, I'm not asking you for shit.
Now, so right, no, you're 1,000% correct. But the point before you jumped in, I was gonna say is that vulnerability of needing help, but the relationship must be symbiotic.
Chaotic. That's right.
There, so that means there is a mutual
Yeah.
life-giving source
Yeah.
that you are providing something I need in
Yeah.
exchange
For
for me providing something you need.
and
And
that's
that's
some
not, and to be clear, that is not for
say it.
that is not the dynamic for every member of the cabinet.
No, 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 no.
And that may not even be for the cabinet. It may
Right.
be a whole different role.
Yeah.
Could be your secretary. It could vary who that person is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be. And I think that I'm glad you injected the need and the desire for vulnerability. We are not our predecessors.
Hmm.
We don't move like them. We don't, we have access, or folk have access to us that you wouldn't have with our predecessors. Things are just different. And it requires for both parties, the president and those who are touching the president, to understand that things are a little different. I remember one person saying, I don't know what the big deal is about a president. Like, I don't know why people fall all over him. And I had to remind them that people remember the Samuel DeWitt Proctors. The reverence was because the presidents were more than administrators. They were fathers, they were preachers, they were crazy uncles when they needed to be, they were politicians, they were so many different things. And that reverence is not this patriarchal trope that people want to say is just about falling over the office of the president. The office of the president at any college, but particularly in HBCU, means a whole lot to a whole lot of people. And because you don't have reverence for it, does not mean that everybody else is wrong, and nor does it mean that a God complex is carried by the person who sits in that space. But if you know who the president is, if you enjoy service like that president does, if you understand the symbiotic nature of a relationship
That's right.
and trust and believe in the vision, then you find yourself in a sweet spot.
Yeah. And to your point, uh, access, and I'm not talking about proximity, just the nature of access via email, telephone, social media has um, warped some people's uh, sense of respect, and it is the case that people in the work environment have confused the fact that the president is friendly with the president being your friend, and the two are not the same.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
That's right. And so some people cannot manage access in the 21st century.
Ain't for everybody,
It
dog.
ain't ever- So because there's increased access, they believe that there is a level of equality that may not exist. And so they cross boundaries because they are familiar. And
Cut.
then you have to help them find the proper space. And then their feelings are hurt.
I want you to cut across the field for us today. This has been an absolute joy. I knew it would be. I knew
Oh
it
yeah,
would.
we got to do it again. Got to do it
We
again.
not only got to, we will
Yeah.
soon. Because I mean, there's research to talk about. There's the future of HBCUs to talk about. There's the politics of now. You have a social justice institute in space on your campus. We practice in social justice on our campus. There's a lot forward to you coming back and having those conversations.
Did you freeze on me, Doc?
You good, man. You good. I
Froze.
kept rolling. If you would not have said anything, I would have. Nobody would have known, right?
Oh,
Because I
good,
had you. I stood in the gap for you.
good, good. I think this topic has been critically important. And one of the things we did not deal with was the word intentional. And I hope that though we did not cue that word specifically, that those who have listened tonight will know that you have your future in your hands. And let me help you. You have the future of thousands of people's children and grandchildren in your hands. And what you do matters to somebody's grandmama in Sugar Ditch, Mississippi, and Sherrall, South Carolina, in Briar, Alabama. And so we have to remember our call and our call to serve and to help. And so while you are climbing, as my grandma used to say, be careful how you treat people on your way up the ladder, because you will meet the same people on your way back down.
This has been a phenomenal conversation. I want to thank you again, Dr. M. Christopher Brown, President of Kentucky State. This has been Forethoughts of Our Founders, the Higher Education Leadership podcast. And we're so grateful. Look forward to many more conversations. Wish you Godspeed. You and a thoroughbred nation.
Thoroughbreds.
And when we're able to go back outside and play again, hopefully we can meet at our favorite restaurant.
That's right, Waffle House.
All day long.
That's right. I want the all-American right now. Don't make me go do a drive-by and do a takeout on my way home. My house flooded, so I don't have a kitchen right now. That might be the answer tonight.
Yes, got us smothered in chalk.
Yeah, that might be the answer tonight.
There it is, man. God bless you, brother.
God bless you. Y'all stay safe. Wear masks.
Yes, sir. All day long. Take care, man.
All right.